Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Post-Gazette Penguins podcast. I'm your host, King Jemison, coming to you from across the northern border in Calgary, where the Penguins will take on the Flames today at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. So a very late one for those back on the East Coast. I'm actually recording this Tuesday night. Had a long travel day from Seattle. Those two cities aren't that far apart, but they're pretty hard to get between. Happy to be here now and happy to watch the Pens continue this four-game road trip later today as you're listening to this. So they got that four-game road trip off to a very, very good start with a 6-3 win in Seattle on Monday, a very impressive business-like approach in that game. Dan Muse praised their ability to sort of handle some of the runs of the game without ever really allowing the Kraken to get that much momentum, and the Pens were able to pull away in the third period. We're going to talk about that game, and then we're going to talk about some of the depth that really was the story of that game, and it's been such a story of this season. And also there's a bit of news from today, both on the injury and trade front to touch on as well. But before we get to all that, I want to remind you that this show is presented by FanDuel, where you can bet on all the NHL action, and the Penguins are minus 118 favorites here in Calgary today at FanDuel. These two teams played to a 2-1 score a little over a week ago in PPG Paints Arena. And you can bet the under 5.5 goals at FanDuel at plus 112 odds. So if you think the Pens and the Flames are going to play another defensive game, there's a little money-making opportunity for you thanks to our friends at FanDuel. So let's start today by talking a little bit about the Seattle game that happened on MLK Day. That was on Monday. And the Pens got off to a great start, jumped out to a 2-0 lead with two quite unlikely goal scorers. That would be Parker Wotherspoon and Connor Dewar. Connor Dewar scores a shorthanded goal, really impressive play for the fourth line forward, picks the pocket of a couple Seattle players at the Pens blue line and takes it the other way for a breakaway goal. And he would later get an empty netter to give him 11 for the season, tying his career high. And the guy actually really knows how to shoot. Like, that's not what his game is about. We know that this is a guy who plays hard, who is part of this gritty fourth line that we see so much energy from, but we're not necessarily expecting to get on the scoreboard. Well, they have been getting on the scoreboard recently, and Dewar in particular, that shot just stands out, and he was able to pretty easily get that breakaway goal. But then, as we saw on Saturday's shootout loss to Columbus, Pens did not have a great second period, and they allowed the Kraken to come back and tie the game. And that's when I think the biggest moment of the game happened. So about a minute after the Kraken tie the game, the Pens win a faceoff in the Seattle zone. Crosby is able to get the puck to Brett Kulak, who fires a shot from just inside the blue line, and it goes in. That was Kulak's first goal as a Penguin, and his first goal of the season because he came over in December in the Tristan Jarry trade from Edmonton. He became the 26th different goal scorer for Pittsburgh this season. That's the most in the NHL, and we're going to talk about that depth later. But from that point, the Pens were able to maintain a lead. Justin Brazeau added a goal on a rush opportunity early in the third period. Really a great breakout created by Connor Clifton, whose play is another thing that we need to touch on with the depth. And Anthony Mantha picked up an assist on that goal as well. And then the Kraken were able to make it a little bit more of a tense third period with a goal to bring it to 4-3. But Rickard Rakell, after a day of four, unusual goal scorers, Justin Brazeau scored quite a bit, but you don't exactly expect to see Parker Wotherspoon, Connor Dewar, and Brett Kulak all on the score sheet as well. But then the top line came through to give the Pens some breathing room. Rakell scores on an assist from Crosby. Crosby had 2 assists in this game. It was his 1400th career NHL game. So a really strong effort pretty much in all phases for the Pens in Seattle. Stuart Skinner played well again, gave up 3 goals. It was probably his worst game since the holiday break, but that's not saying much. And he was still very, very good. And the Stew chants actually followed him to Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. That was crazy to see. There was quite a few Pens fans in the building, and that cheer As he said, it's quite easy to do, and it has made its way out west. We'll see if that continues north of the border in Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver to complete this trip. Now, the depth was really the story of the Seattle game, and it's really becoming one of the stories of the season. Yes, Sidney Crosby is having an awesome season. Yes, Evgeny Malkin has been resurgent. Yes, Erik Karlsson, before his injury, was excellent, and we'll touch on an injury update for him in a moment. But the team's depth just continues to show out. And in this game, the first 4 goal scorers were not on this team a year ago. Now, Connor Dewar joined at the back end of last season. That was in March. The other 3, being Wotherspoon, Brazeau, and Kulak, have all come over either in the offseason or in an in-season trade. And then you look at the team's defense. So it's not just about the goal scoring. You look at the defense that the team is rolling out there right now without Erik Karlsson. To think that Parker Wotherspoon has been clearly capable of playing in a top pairing role for most of this season. Now we've seen Brett Kulak come to this team midseason and immediately step into a big role. He's really brought the most out of Kris Letang. And then Connor Clifton and Ryan Graves have been out of the lineup for really most of this season, but Graves played his first game since December 14th on Monday in Seattle. He and Clifton were a good pairing. They actually are, at natural stat trick, the 2 highest Pens defensemen in terms of expected goals for while on the ice. Like, they've actually gotten a little bit unlucky, Clifton and Graves, in terms of what the actual goal numbers look like. But the advanced stats show that they've both been quite solid on both ends of the puck. And, a couple goals from defensemen on Monday following Clifton's first goal as a Penguin on Saturday. So that means 3 goals for defensemen that you would certainly put on the defensively minded side of the spectrum in the past 2 games. That's made up for Erik Karlsson's absence in a big way. And you just have to continue to credit Kyle Dubas for putting together this team around Crosby, Malkin, Karlsson, Letang, giving these aging stars a chance to win with some cast-offs from other places, sort of a ragtag bunch that has continued to be able to produce. And I think it's given this team a little bit of a grittier identity than we've seen from the Penguins in recent season. And I asked Justin Brazeau about that identity, given that he's one of the new guys, one of these guys who stepped into a bigger role. And he talked about how they just have a lot of people who basically know what they're capable of and are getting a chance to show it. And they're not trying to be anything but themselves. And that is definitely showing on the scoreboard, and it's showing in the win column. The Pens were able to get up to 57 points for the season, and they're currently 3rd in the Metro, a couple points behind the Islanders. But, I don't think many people saw this team having 57 points through 48 games. And that's with a whole lot of overtime losses that have kind of bled some of those points away. So last thing for today's pod is probably a classic example of burying the lead, but I guess in pods, we're allowed to do that, unlike in our writing over at Post-Gazette.com. There was some news that came out Tuesday. I'm recording this Tuesday night, so today for me, and you're probably watching this on Wednesday, so this is a day's old news. Erik Karlsson returned to practice on Tuesday in Calgary in a full contact jersey for the first time since he was placed on IR a week ago. Now, I was not there at this practice, even though I am in Calgary. Air travel between Seattle and Calgary is not easy. Got bumped from my flight that was going to bring me in time. But, the reporters there saw Karlsson and were able to talk to him afterwards, and he seemed to be in good spirits. He spoke about how he's not a mascot on this road trip. Basically, he is expecting to play sometime soon. It's probably not going to be against Calgary, but I think you could see him in the lineup in either the Edmonton and Vancouver games in the back half of this road trip. That's going to be important because the Pens got hit with the injury bug as in a different form on Tuesday, as Kris Letang has been listed as out day-to-day with an injury that must have popped up in the Kraken game. Not exactly sure what happened there. It was designated an upper body injury. So he did not practice Tuesday. We'll see if he plays Wednesday. My guess would be no, and we'll see how long this absence takes. Recently, Bryan Rust was designated as day-to-day. He ended up missing 2 games, both sets of a back-to-back. The Pens are about to play a back-to-back Wednesday in Calgary, Thursday in Edmonton before they have a few days off. Their next game would be Sunday in Vancouver. I would just purely a guess, but it would kind of seem that would make sense that Letang would miss these next couple games and hopefully be able to return by then. That defensive depth that we talked about before, going to be tested. Jack St. Ivany was stepped out of the lineup with Ryan Graves coming in. I would expect he's going to go back up, and we'll see how Dan Muse arranges those defensive pairs. He's going to have a new option, though, as well, or at least I believe he will, because the Pens made a trade for a blue liner today as well, or on Tuesday as well. Ilya Solovyov, and apologies if that pronunciation is incorrect. I'm using the NHL pronunciation guide. From Colorado, a former 7th-round pick who's played 31 career NHL games, including 16 this season. Dubas traded for him today in return for Valtteri Puustinen, a forward who has spent most of the past few seasons cumulatively with Wilkes-Barre Scranton, has been a stalwart for them. But he played 65 games over the previous 2 seasons before this one for the Penguins, and he had yet to appear in an NHL game this season. So the poor Wilkes-Barre Scranton just continues to see their depth shattered over and over again. It's a good thing for the Baby Pens that they have Rucker McGroarty, Ville Koivunen, and Tristan Brose down there at the moment to be able to hold things together. But, you know, it's hard to say exactly what this trade is going to mean. But for now, Ilya Solovyov is coming to join this road trip. He is on the NHL roster. In his short NHL career, he's bounced between the AHL and NHL with both Calgary, who drafted him, and Colorado, where he was this season after they picked him up on waivers from Calgary. We'll see if that is going to be his fate in Pittsburgh as well. But for now, he is coming back. He is coming on this road trip. And with the team's defensive injuries, you would think he might have a chance to play. My guess would be the 6th defenseman would be Wotherspoon, Kulak, Clifton, Graves, St. Ivany, and Shea. But Solovyov might have a chance to slide into that lineup as well, and at the very least provide some much-needed defensive depth with Karlsson and Letang likely out Wednesday. So that's going to do it for the Wednesday edition of the Post-Gazette Penguins podcast. I'll be back with you on Friday from Vancouver. We'll recap this very important back-to-back set in Calgary and Edmonton. Listen, when I say very important back-to-back set, I really mean the front half of it's very important. We kind of have an idea of how that game in Thursday in Edmonton is going to go. Not a place where the Pens have had a lot of success, a team that lit them up earlier this season, and the Oilers are not going to be on the second night of a back-to-back. If the goalie rotation continues, it'll be a Stuart Skinner homecoming appearance in net for the Pens. And then that would set up Artur Shilovs to potentially start for the team that traded him away in Vancouver on Sunday. I could also see Dan Muse switching it up for that reason, but we will see. We'll hopefully find that out at morning skate tomorrow, who's going to be in net for the Penguins in Calgary. Very important game for them to win. Calgary team that just traded away Rasmus Andersson. It's an opportunity to pick up 2 points and 2 needed points ahead of a very difficult game in Edmonton. So please like and subscribe wherever you're seeing this, listening to it. We really appreciate your support, and it helps us get this in front of more people. And also, please subscribe at post-gazette.com, where we are continuing to put out our best work, and we so appreciate your support. It means more now than ever. So I'll be back with you later this week from Western Canada. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and stay warm, Pittsburgh.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.